Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Angry Ghost Hunter here on Spaced Out Radio. As once a month, we bring in a lot of great paranormal experts to come on in here and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the paranormal. And joining us, as per usual, is the angriest ghost hunter of them all, the top hat wearing Ross Allison. I finally got him to wear the top hat tonight. And, you know, I'm just excited about this. We got MERLE. Yeah, MERLE. Jacob Rice as our regulars. Our special guest tonight, ghost hunting out of Philadelphia, height unknown, weight unknown, from the man cave ever, Kenny Biddle is with us. And gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Angry Ghost Hunter. How you doing, Ross?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a pretty busy few weeks for me. I did the live George Norrie event at the historic Everett Theater, and then I had to start filming for the George Norrie's series Beyond Belief. So I've been doing that for the past couple days. So it's been pretty busy, and then I got to get ready to leave for my lecture tour.
Very cool. Very cool. What's it like sitting in there with George Norrie? I have met him a couple of times now, and I got to say, you know, maybe it's just me because I consider him a radio idol of mine, but I mean, I find him so intimidating. I really do. And yet he's such a nice guy.
He is the sweetest guy. And people were like, God, does he ever smile in his pictures? And they were like intimidated by him, but like, oh my God, he gives so much time to his fans. In fact, Tom, the producer, kept trying to pull him away from the fans to keep everything on track. But yeah, he is one of the nicest guys, and I'm really excited to do some more shows with him.
Very, very true. And you know, once you get in that name category with George Norrie, he never forgets who you are. A lot of people will sit there and say, well, you know, I don't know if he knows who I am. I remember in Vancouver a couple of years ago, I was at a UFO conference that he was speaking at, and out of the blue, he goes, "Hey, Dave, come on over here." And I'm like, who, me? And he goes, yeah, you. And he goes, "I just want to tell you, you're doing a great job with Spaced Out Radio, and I've listened to it. I think you're a real pro on there, and keep doing what you're doing." And I was blown away. Like, I didn't even think he knew who I was. But
it's awesome.
Yeah, man. So shout out to Mr. George Norrie of Coast to Coast AM. Let's get into some ghost hunting, though, gentlemen, as we continue on here with the Angry Ghost Hunter. We got a really couple good topics to talk about tonight. And so we're just going to get right into it right now. Using the paranormal to prove the paranormal. And, of course, we debate, discuss all the things. Jake, I heard you snickering right off the bat.
I guess you just want me to give my 2 cents right off the bat, eh?
Well, I'm looking for 3 cents because I am Canadian.
That's right. The currency exchange and all. No.
That's it. Short and sweet. No.
No. Well, no. We could put it into a few different categories. We can do, slumber party hijinks fun. Okay, have at it. Pull out the tarot cards, the Ouija board, dowsing rods, all that fun stuff, I guess. Scare yourself crapless, have fun with it. Serious paranormal investigation, no, because if you did anything, it would probably be a random coincidence. I guess I only have 2 for the 3 cents. There you go. Woo time. Peppa is right. Woo time. That's woo.
Ross, where are we going with this tonight? Because Jacob filled us in so fully that we're just absolutely stuffed with information there.
I know. God, the time just flew by. Oh my God.
4 minutes in.
I'm surprised we have 56 minutes left after that. But what do you mean by using the paranormal to prove the paranormal?
Well, it is a common thing where a lot of groups are dependent on the woo-woo toys and when investigating. We've talked about Ouija boards. We've talked about, seances. We've talked about, dowsing, pendulums. And scrying. Oh my God.
I just had to throw that one out.
No, the list can go on for a bit here. And it's one of the toughest things that you try to separate these groups, because there's a lot of groups that want to use the paranormal as proof to the paranormal. It makes the excitement of the investigation. But I struggle with the fact that I really want groups to be a little more serious. And this is where we have this, this is why I should say the paranormal is so diverse. The paranormal field is so diverse, because people kind of do their own little thing in validating their experiences. And I find that the toughest thing is when people want to use the paranormal to prove the paranormal.
True.
How about you, Merle?
I agree. I was having this conversation this past weekend on an investigation. We had the absolute wicked opportunity to investigate this old cattle ranch from the 1800s up in the interior of British Columbia. And it was really, really slow. There's been lots of accounts of like seeing spirits, hearing footsteps, everything, right? And we're in this beautiful mansion, 1867. Keys given to us. They all walk away. And we're sitting in there. We're just doing a straight EVP session. No toys, no nothing. We had the EDI Plus going, right? For the atmosphere. And the camera, and we're just nothing. And then we just start talking while we're doing the EVP session and be like, man, if only we had an Ovilus, or if we had joking, Jake, we were joking about it. I know you got triggered there.
I got triggered, man.
But no, let me finish. We were starting to joke about that, or like some stupid app, or like other right now type devices. But that's not what it's about. We're trying to do the research. We don't want the gear to do the research for us. It was for us about putting in the time, but we were snickering the entire time about how I would, honest to God, this may sound a bit ew from me, that 90% of groups don't put in the time on investigations like that. They'll go straight to an Ovilus, or they'll go straight to a phone app, and they're not proving
the demons have not told me to get out yet.
I'm run. But and it's a perfect topic to talk about. And I mentioned that during our investigation of how we're going to talk about paranormal proving the paranormal, because I don't think the devices in that do that.
Well, another thing to add in there is even psychics or mediums. People, or I should say teams, are very dependent on those individuals as well. And that element is just as paranormal, as it is. And I've been on shows where they wanted me to validate something is going on in some of these places, but can we bring in a psychic? And I'm just like, well, now you have to put yourself in a position where do you have to validate the psychic as well? So it's a very fine line when it comes to investigating.
Let's get Kenny Biddle in here, because he's been pretty silent. He's a man of few words so far tonight. But we want to get him in here and get your opinion. Kenny, thank you so much for joining us on the Angry Ghost Hunter for the first time. Very curious about your thoughts regarding the paranormal, investigating the paranormal.
Well, I do have a few. So when you use the word paranormal, first of all, you have to define what that is, because that's it's a blanket term. Honestly, it covers a wide range of everything. It's not just one particular thing or category. It's a whole bunch of stuff. But just going off of general descriptions, I guess, using the paranormal to prove the paranormal is kind of like, and I don't know if I'm crossing a line here, but saying, oh, I'm going to use the Bible to prove the Bible. It just, you can't do it. You can't do it. You're using unproven, untested circumstances or methods in order to prove other unproven methods. If you're going to be doing this for a hobby or for thrills, like if you're going out for a weekend because you have nothing to do and it's a date night kind of thing and you're just trying to scare yourselves, by all means, have fun, scare the crap out of each other. But if you're trying to be any kind of close to serious, no, you don't use paranormal gadgets and tactics to prove the paranormal. You don't do that. It's like, oh, I'm going to use the Ouija board to prove the Ouija board exists or works. You can't do it because
All right.
there's so many problems. There's so many variables with it. So if you're going to try to prove something, again, when you're using the word paranormal, this is a blanket term. Like, what are you trying to prove? Are you trying to prove that ghosts exist, or ghosts can move something, or things move by themselves? I mean, you have to be specific. And I mean, just the full disclaimer, I'm totally a man of science. So I need testable claims. You can't just throw me a ghost story and say, everything happens in this haunted house. It's haunted because everyone knows it's haunted. No, what goes on?
Trigger word. You hit my trigger word right there, and that's the word science.
Science.
There is absolutely zero science in paranormal. Zero science. And I'll have a friendly debate with you on this, because I think, in my opinion, and I'm not a ghost hunter, I'm just a journalist and an experiencer. But the one thing I've learned in 6.5 years of doing this show is there is very little to no actual science in the paranormal being completed.
I agree with you.
And so I not to, I don't want to sound like I'm
Angry,
slapping your hand or anything, but I think the word science is thrown around way too easy in the paranormal. When A, we don't trust the gear because nothing has proven anything. B, we're not using any type of hypothesis to try and form a conclusion. And C, we can't test the same. We can test the same areas every time, but the variables are going to be different every time. So if you're investigating a house in summer, the variables are going to be different from when you're investigating that house come wintertime.
I agree. I agree. And I want to follow up saying I don't know if I'm not a ghost hunter. I want to make that clear. I am not a ghost hunter whatsoever. I write for a skeptical magazine, a skeptical journal. I lecture at science conferences on deconstructing photographs and videos, explaining exactly what's going on with them. My articles really focus on ghost hunting gadgets and taking them apart and telling you what they really do, as opposed to what the manufacturers, and I use air quotes deliberately, what the manufacturers claim that they do. So I just want to get that out of the way, because it kind of sounded like you thought I was a ghost hunter, and I go out and...
No, I knew you weren't.
I knew
that.
You weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely don't do that. When I bring science into it, that's because I'm cracking down on the gadgets and the how they're used, the methodology behind what they're not only how they're used, but the design flaws, the design of the gadgets that are being used, like EMF detectors or motion sensors or what have you. I'm looking at the science behind it, what it's actually designed to do, as opposed to what ghost hunters claim that they can do or what they've adopted the gadgets to do. So when I say I'm a man of science, I am a man of science. I love science. I'm an enthusiast. I think it's the scientific method. All versions of it is how we learn, how we understand things better. Going out and doing the ghost hunting thing doesn't. It's a hobby. It's a thrill-seeking hobby to me, for the most part. I'm not trying to be derogatory. I'm not trying to make fun of people, but for the most part, ghost hunting is a thrill-seeking weekend warrior hobby. It is not science whatsoever, and you don't get results, much less record the results for long-term data review. I mean, that's just unheard of. That just doesn't happen. So, yeah, again, when I say I'm a man of science, I'm being literal. I'm not being figurative. Because
I think you're making sense there.
Yeah, I try. I'm still sober.
I think you're making sense there, and logic is the big thing. But one of the things that I always argue with these three guys, and I usually get beaten to a pulp every time and leave with a black eye and a bloody nose afterwards, is the fact that I am of a firm belief, and I think of things totally different. These guys are the gearheads right here. I mean, underneath his top hat, Ross literally has camera gear sewn all into that, just in case someone walks by and he's got to quickly grab something. The beautiful part about it is, and this is what I firmly believe, is that some of this gear, as trashy as it is, and trust me, I don't buy into the apps or anything like that, But I know there's a lot of debate about ghost boxes. There's a lot of debate about K2s and SLSs and everything that goes in between. And Jake is going to kick me right in the shins as I get into this. I can feel my shins starting to bruise already. But nonetheless, the way I look at it, Ken, is this. I believe that a lot of this gear can be used by only certain people. It's a theory of mine. I have nothing to go on it. Okay. Like, give you an example. I live in an area, and Merle can attest, there is one radio station in my town. One that picks up signal. Even in the crispest, clearest nights on top of the mountain, we only get one radio signal. And when I use a ghost box, I get nothing. Nothing. Yet if Merle comes up here or Bill Hauser comes up here, this thing's going off like a friggin' Christmas tree, okay, of different voices, wherever they're from. And so this is what I think. I think these pieces of gear have something to do with the energy that the people put in it themselves. And that could result in results or result in absolutely nothing. Your thoughts?
So the word energy, I really have a problem with that because it is used as a buzzword in the paranormal community. It's not used. Energy is defined as the ability to do work. And when it's used as a buzzword, and I'm just talking out loud. I'm not
okay.
being confrontational with you. When it's used in a way like, oh, when you go in there and the person's energy does this, the person's energy does that. That's a placeholder. That's a nonsensical explanation because there is no mechanism by which the energy that you're putting out, heat, because that's pretty much the only energy that you're putting out that would affect the environment. It's not affecting the equipment, and we have nothing to back up how it would affect the equipment. I mean, if you can find a correlation between something that's emanating from a human body and a device, there has to be a mechanism there. So if we don't know any kind of mechanism that can make that happen, then using that kind of explanation is assumption only. That's not science. That's making an assumption. With your example of the radio with the ghost box, if you're not getting anything but somebody else is, we have to look at all the boxes. We have to look at those. And for me, a good test would be to put it in a Faraday box, a well-constructed Faraday box, not something you get off of Amazon because honestly, they're shit. They don't work. I don't know if we're allowed to curse.
Yeah, we're allowed.
Okay. Sorry. I tried to ask before.
We're only allowed to swear when Ross has his top hat on.
Okay.
Okay. Good to know.
So I have a Faraday box that I constructed. It's a large box, and I made sure that it blocks AM and FM. AM's much smaller signal, so it can sneak in little tiny openings. So every time I've encountered someone that claims that they're getting voices, intelligent voices, let me make that clear. When they claim that they're getting intelligent voices from the radio that's answering their questions directly, I ask them to put it in the box. And once they do that, it stops. And in the example that you gave, I would say that's something that you really should look into because, even if you have one radio station, but you yourself said you get nothing, which doesn't make sense itself because you should at least be getting something from one radio station.
Well, I mean, that's what I mean. I am getting every 97.7, I get a little click from the radio station, but otherwise, I'm not getting voices. Merle and I can go into the same building up here, all right? And he'll get ghosts saying my name, his name, our buddy Mark's name. I'll get nothing.
And that's why I would suggest putting it in a Faraday box because you're dealing with this goes back to using equipment for other purposes, repurposing equipment for ghost hunting. The ghost box is literally a radio. It's a broken radio, in my opinion, but it's a radio. It's made and designed to pick up terrestrial radio frequencies, transmissions. So, yes, you could have atmospheric conditions that could bounce some radio frequencies from further away, especially at night, when because I believe AM bumps up their transmissions.
AM and FM, like coming from an old radio guy who used to play on the dials. And if anybody has never done this in your car, if you're driving at night, take the time to just, it sounds useless, but take the time to go on your radio in your car and just go click, click, click. It's amazing at night where you could pick up radio stations from. When I lived near Vancouver, I was listening to a 2002 Olympic show out of Salt Lake City.
Wow.
Right? I could listen to Calgary Flames hockey games from Calgary on AM 960. I mean, so I know how the signals work is what I'm saying. And I recommend just go do that dial, anyone. It's amazing what you can pick up at night, say around between 11 and 3 a.m.
Right.
It's amazing. So I know what you're saying about the whole signal thing. Okay.
But if I can say something real quick too, you need to understand that a lot of these devices are being manipulated as well. There are devices out there that have voice recognition in them, so they'll repeat what you say. So you have to be careful with those. So, a controlled experiment is going to be the best way to determine what's going on.
Right. 100%. And that's why I suggest anything that receives radio frequencies, put it in a Faraday box. And again, I can't stress it enough, a well-constructed and tested Faraday box. Because I've seen a lot out there, my interactions with groups in the area that like, oh yeah, we have a bag, we have a Faraday bag, and they put it in there. I can put my phone in there. I'm still getting it to ring. I'm like, you're not blocking it. You're not doing enough. These are crap when you get them from Amazon. No offense to Amazon because I buy a lot of crap from them, but well constructed. Make sure it's tested, and put the ghost box in that Faraday box. Because that'll block out. That's your control. That's your major control right there. You're blocking out AM, FM radio frequencies. So now if you get something from that, then it's interesting. I'm not saying it's a ghost or it's paranormal, blanket term, but I'm saying it's interesting. It's something that deserves further research, deserves looking into more. But until you do that, you're susceptible to any kind of frequencies, any kind of broadcasts that are out there. And again, as you explained, at night, you can pick up things from much further away. Right. And who knows what you're going to get.
Very true. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to topic number 2 here tonight, as we have Ross Allison, we have Kenny Dibble, we have MERLE, and Jacob Rice, absolutely, for the Angry Ghost Hunter once again. And topic number 2 for this week and this month, charging for investigations. Oh, this is a stick subject. Ross, I'm just going to let you unleash for about 18 minutes here. And
let me brew some coffee. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So we'll just put the screen like this, and then Ross can go absolutely. And 3.
Oh my God. No, this has been a problem. In the past, where I've seen a lot of groups want to charge for their services. And I have 3 issues with this. Number 1, when people are paying for your services, they expect something in return. And as we know with the paranormal, you never know what to expect, and you can't guarantee anything in return. Number 2 is I think it affects credibility. If you're trying to build your credibility as being a serious paranormal investigator and you're charging for your services, anybody who's in the skeptical field is going to say, well, you're just in it for the money.
Predator.
Yep. And number 3 is, why would you put yourself in a position where if somebody is experiencing true paranormal phenomena and they can't afford your services? If you're a true paranormal researcher, you would want to put yourself in that position where you can get out there and explore what they claim to be experiencing. So those are my big 3 things when it comes to, charging for services. And I know there have been people, it's like, well, it can be expensive. Well, if it's too expensive for you, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Ross, I'm going to put a caveat in here for you, because I know when I have gone on ghost hunts or investigations to help people, I always say, no, I'm not taking any money. Not for the money. But what happens if somebody wants to give you a donation?
I'm okay with donations. If somebody feels the need to do that, but we don't ask for it, somebody wants to offer a donation, that's fine. That's cool. Because in some cases, especially when they ask us to go way out of our way, like there are a lot of places. Yes, we're in the Seattle-Tacoma area, but there have been times when we've had to drive, 3 or 4 hours to get to some of these places. And they're like, well, let me at least, cover your gas expenses. Okay, that's fine. But we don't ask for any fees.
Okay, so for a lot of people out there in the paranormal world, believe it or not, I have to ask this stupid question. All right. What is the difference between a fee and a donation?
Well, a fee is when you're asking it, you have a certain amount that they have to pay for your services. A donation is, if they want to give you $1, $5, $20 or more, it's up to them.
All right.
The fee is $5.99, and Ross gets rid of the demons. $10.99, he comes back to ensure they're gone. And buy 3 demon exorcisms, get the 4th one free.
Okay,
That's
let me ask the important
And for $10.99, I'll wear the hat.
And for $2,500, one-time fee only, Ross will sign you an autographed 8x10, your color, your choice, color or black and white, to put on your wall.
Yep.
Scares ghosts right off the bat. It is covered in holy water and very pure for the area that you put it in.
Gotcha.
That's what a fee is, in my opinion.
But is tax included in that fee, or is it on top? I'm just asking for a friend.
Jacob, you bring up a good point right there. Sorry for cutting you off. Why am I so yappy tonight?
Have at it.
Okay, but here's the other thing too, guys. A lot of these ghost hunting teams who are charging are not businesses.
Correct.
They are not registered businesses. And therefore, legally, they're doing it under the table, which is illegal in any country, number one. But number two, if they were a legalized business, they would have to charge tax on that and give you a receipt.
Mm-hmm.
True.
And that's not happening. So go ahead, Jake.
Oh, no. So, when it comes to the, we can take it like that. Let's take it from the 503, because ghost hunting groups can, register as nonprofits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can still have services. Let's take Pet Rescue. So whenever I do something and someone wants to give me a donation, I give them a link to my favorite dog rescue charity.
I like that.
That's awesome.
And, whatever they want to give, fine and dandy, just put it. And I usually put it in one of my dog's names, like give it the name of Wally or something like that. But you're right. I'm not a fan, right, of charging fees and stuff. But there are certain groups that do it. But I think legally, and I'm speaking from the Amerikansky perspective here, as long as they're investing back in themselves and not using it in a way to profit, 503, you get the charitable donation thing. But you got to be registered as a charity, and I don't think ghost hunting groups count as charities. You know what I'm saying? Or those nonprofit organizations. So that can get you in trouble. Otherwise, it's under the table casino money.
Yeah, but if you're charging, you're liable. Like, what if?
So here's the whole thing. You can do the contract that says that the paranormal. Look at me putting on legal hat
For entertainment purposes.
Yeah, you can do for entertainment purposes, or there is no guarantee we will do these things like a scope of work X, Y, and Z. There is no guarantee because it's supernatural or paranormal. Usually this is why they slap the for entertainment purposes only on it, like the 1-800-900 psychics.
And you bring up a good point there, because, away from the paranormal guys, there are a lot of podcasts and YouTube channels out there that could be sued any day because of psychic readings. I'll tell you, they don't mention the forewarning that this is for entertainment purposes only. They talk about health. How many times every psychic for some reason wants to, you got cancer, honey. You got cancer, or you got glaucoma in your eyes. Or the other thing is, honey, he is cheating on you. Like, dump his ass to the curb, baby.
But remember,
the divorce papers are in the mail.
That's right. But remember, this is information coming in at the minute, and it could be misinterpreted as his thought forms that are creating this. He's been having dirty dreams. And so, I see the dark tentacle wrapping around, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, absolutely. But that's the problem that we have, is the entertainment purposes only. Merle, let's let you get in about 17 words here.
17? Oh,
We're
boy.
counting.
We're counting. No, well, that's just what I said like a couple minutes ago. I think if you're exchanging money, even with a contract, done, you're legally obligated for that person's safety as well. Do you have liability insurance? I don't even think that stuff should be a conversation, because you're going there as a volunteer to help people. I feel if you're charging, those people become vulnerable. Okay, so it's going to cost you $500 for the initial investigation, but if we find anything, we're going to have to bring in Johnny the psychic, and then Johnny's going to have to charge you $500, but then there's a consultation fee. So those people are paying you in trust, which I think is absolutely predatory.
One thing I want to make a very clear point about is, we joke around about this, but this stuff really does happen.
Exactly.
And I have seen groups charge hundreds of dollars for their services. I've seen psychics, charge, hundreds of dollars for clearings, and yet they can't, prove that the clearing is going to happen. So they always say, I'll come back for an extra $100 here and there.
Or they come back with, it's all in what you believe, honey. If you put up that psychic shield, burn that sage, and blast them out of here, I can't wait to see the hate mail coming through the YouTube chat. But
what I tell people, so when people are like, oh, how much do you charge? I'm like, we don't charge. The payment we get is the ability to come investigate your house and do research to see if there's something paranormal going on.
Let's get Kenny in here. Kenny, we need your opinion. Charging for ghost hunting.
So, wow, this is a big topic, honestly. My first question is, what are you charging for? Like, what am I getting out of this? And you guys covered things like business and nonprofit. Yes, liability insurance, because you're coming in, and not only it goes beyond the interpretation of data, which unfortunately I would say most of the time it's not a good interpretation, but you're dealing with anxiety, stress. What damages are you causing when you're there? What if you break something? What if somebody gets hurt? If you're charging for a service and you're coming into someone's home and you get hurt, or you hurt a family member, where's your liability insurance for that?
Exactly.
If you come in there and tell them that they have 27 demons in their house, and they freak out so much that you cause psychological damage to that family because they cannot sleep at night, they have high anxiety, they have high stress, they end up selling their house at a loss because they have to get out of there because they're so scared of being in there. That's on you, the person that charged money to come in there to investigate. And sadly, I'm going to put investigate in air quotes, because I don't think most groups actually investigate. I think they anomaly hunt. That's a whole different topic. You're getting into this liability on the group that's charging for their services. And are they qualified to provide such services? Or do they have any training? Do they have any kind of insight except, hey, you know what? They woke up one morning and decided to be a ghost hunter, and they decided to put up a website, and now they are a paranormal investigator, because that's a more professional sounding term. And now they're going to charge you money to come out to your house and investigate. What qualifications do they have? Are they qualified to offer me advice? Are they qualified to offer counseling if I'm scared to death to be in my own house?
A lot of times what has happened, and I've had a number of guests, Kenny, on this show come on, on Spaced Out Radio, come on and say the worst thing they ever did when they started having major paranormal activity, because they didn't know where to turn. They didn't know where there was this giant community of paranormal investigators out there, was they went to Google, and the one with the best SEO options on their website was the one they choose. And by the time that ghost team left, the activity was so much more violent and so much worse for the family that the family was literally stricken with panic and fear and wondering, if these guys can't do it, who can help me? They're supposed to be pros. Look at their website. They're number one on Google, which usually is supposed to be a good thing, right? But we're seeing that, Ken.
It's all about the cool font.
Right. We're not holding the ghost hunters accountable for anything.
And they should be.
Yeah,
They
they
really
should.
need to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen, and I'll try. I got a quick story, but I'll run through it really quick. I was at a house and I was tagging along with a ghost hunting team, and one of their members found. They were talking to the owner because the owner had found these bricks in the bedrooms, and the bricks were wrapped in aluminum foil and then tied with a cord. So the owner was freaked out because he already thought his house was haunted. And this one team member came up to him and said, well, that's because these are demons. These bricks are binding spells or binding something. And there were demons in these. And that's why they're in the bedrooms and wrapped in aluminum foil and tied up. And this is why you need to get out of your house real quick. And I'm watching this guy, the homeowner, and he's sitting at his dining room table. He's smoking a cigarette. His hands literally are going like this, and they're getting worse the more this guy talked. Turns out that the bricks, the previous owner was an old lady who lived in the house, and she was poor. And the bricks were a form of cheap heat because she would take them down to the basement to the furnace, put them in the furnace or next to the furnace. They would heat up, and then they would be brought up to the bed, just like antique or vintage bed warmers. They would be slid under the covers. The aluminum foil protected the sheets from burning, and it would warm up the bed. And that was a form of cheap heat at the time. This is actually what they were used for, not binding demons or any other mythological creatures.
I don't know. Demons could heat up the bed too, you know.
Well, they're fresh.
They don't have morals.
But this is the kind of thing that we're talking about here. Where's the liability? Who's to blame? And as far as I'm concerned, that one ghost hunter is to blame because the gentleman did sell his house at a loss. He had to leave. He had some pretty messed up problems. He couldn't sleep, high anxiety, and this was all caused by the ghost hunting team that went in there.
That's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen that on television shows as well. I won't name shows, but I've seen.
I will.
Oh.
Oh, I hate the Dead Files.
Oh my God, yes.
Hate it. Absolutely hate it. Irresponsible.
Yeah, but you see that a lot where they're got the client so terrified and even suggesting to move. It's like, how dare they?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's ridiculous.
The thing about these, and I'm going to generalize here, and I know I'm going to stereotype, so I apologize in advance, but
have fun with
most ghost hunting teams and all of the ghost hunting shows, they don't solve mysteries. They don't solve them. They promote them. They make them entertaining, or they make it so that, hey, this is our 4-hour excursion, our happy time on the weekend, our weekend warrior fling, where we go out to a place for 4 hours. We have our gadgets around that we don't know how to use. And as long as they beep or light up or whatever they do, we have activity. And it's just another thing to post on social media.
Yep.
There's nothing solved. There's no case that's solved that way. That's just promoting and continuing the promotion of fear mongering. That's exactly what it is. And it's sad. It's really sad. It's a hobby that is disguised as scientific investigation, which is complete and utter bullshit.
I call it more of a social club now instead of like weekend warrior social club. So you have like 10 people that have their day jobs, they have their families, but every second Tuesday of the month they all get together, they psych themselves up, and they go to some location. And then when they're there, they're feeding off each other's energy in anticipation for stuff to happen. As soon as that EMF blips or their whatever blips, that's it. And then one person will put the thought that it's, something's negative here. I read on Google that something died here and they haunt it. Mm-hmm. And then the curator that's sitting there saying, oh, Jesus, because these people keep playing into that. And then that's what happens.
I love the places. There's a place close to me called Fort Mifflin. And there is a famous ghost called the Screaming Lady. And her backstory is well known. It's been published in books and it's been on TV shows that have visited the fort. And unfortunately, the history that they have is completely wrong. And I was able to verify it through actual records. Apparently, this woman died by hanging. She hung herself. And that's the short form of the story. But in reality, the record shows she did not hang herself. but I can't tell you how many hundreds of reports and ghost stories I've heard from websites and podcasts of people going there and going, oh yes, we got a picture of the hanging lady, or we heard an EVP where she's hung. And I'm like, no, bitch, you did not, because that's not what happened. It just didn't happen that way. And it just pisses me off. And I know I'm getting very, agitated or excited here.
We're called the Angry Ghost Hunter. Come on.
Good. I'm getting angry. This shit has got to stop. I'm tired of people not doing proper research, not doing proper investigation, and just passing off thrill-seeking bullshit as serious investigation when it's not. And
now I have
the end result, I'm sorry, is that they hurt people. That's what it is.
Yeah, no. In fact, me and David Weatherly, when we started writing our book series, Haunted, we've actually gone out of our way to debunk a lot of those stories. Because if it's going to be out there, I want the truth to be out there. So you're right. You find a lot of these is just copy and paste whatever they see on the internet. They put it in the book. They don't do their real research. And it is frustrating because I want the truth to be out there. I'm not one of those ghost hunters that's going to say, yes, ghosts exist, because, you really have to experience it for yourself. There's nothing I could say or do to prove it. And and I appreciate your skepticism, Kenny, because I followed you for a while. And I've always told people
you don't anymore.
No. But I've always told people, if you're going to be a serious investigator, you have to have a fair share of skepticism. You can't always assume everything is paranormal.
Right.
And the problem is, when I started my organization, 20 years ago, this was not a big thing. In fact, most ghost hunters were still in the closet. You didn't tell people you were ghost hunting because you'd get laughed at. Now it's the hottest thing to say you're a ghost hunter.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating.
Ross, one of the things that you also have to deal with too is there's a lot of lonely or introverted people who want their house to be haunted. They want to have that talking piece of, and if you go in there and you say there's nothing here, it's the copper pipes, or it's the foundation of your 89-year-old house, or maybe you want to think of getting your roof fixed with that leak instead of the ladies or man saying, oh, I got water dripping on my head in the kitchen. A lot of people do not want to hear that. So they'll bypass you and go to 5, 6, 7 other teams
100%.
Until they get what they want.
Exactly.
I get that constantly. I get a lot of emails. Probably on average, I get about 20 emails every day of people asking for my opinion on photos and videos, because that's what I do a lot. A lot of my work is with photos and videos. And I give the explanations that I see, and not just like, no, that's not a ghost. I go into full detail of why it's not a ghost and why this is an optical illusion or a photographic error or operator error, which is mostly the case.
Right.
But it's to show like, hey, it's not all ghosts. It's not all paranormal out there. There's other explanations for this. You have to look deeper for it. And I don't know how else to say it, but that's it. You have to look deeper.
Do you know how many times I've been on an investigation where people get absolutely pissed at you when you get back to them saying there's no evidence, there was nothing, you didn't capture anything.
And they usually, whenever I respond like that and say, hey, you know what, this is what you have, I would say 20 years ago, yes, I got a lot of responses saying, well, you know what, that's not what I think it is. Thanks for your time. Goodbye. And they go to somewhere else. Now I'm seeing more of a shift, a little shift in the responses where it's half of them are like, wow, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I didn't look at that. I didn't realize that. Thanks for the information. While still half of them are like, well, that's not the answer I was looking for. So I'm going to go look. I'm going to go ask somebody else. And I'm like, well, okay. And one of my mottos is like, if you don't want my opinion, please don't waste our time.
Yeah.
Don't waste my time. Don't waste your time. If you're coming to me, you should know who you're asking.
True.
Don't waste our time.
But on the flip side, guys, when it comes to ghost investigation, you can't do you're not going to get everything in one investigation. If you want to do a proper investigation in someone's house, you got to go back there 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And then after 2, 3, 4, 5 times or more, if there's nothing there, then you can say, look, I got nothing. I'm not here to BS you. I got nothing. But if you're only there for a 4-hour or a 2-hour investigation and you get nothing after that, nope, you're, much like the old television show Ghost Hunters, nope, you got nothing here. We're gone. You got nothing. And in the meantime, you got like poltergeist activity. I mean, you can't command the ghost to all of a sudden show up and say, hey guys, you're doing an investigation. Yeah, I'm going to participate in this. What the hell? Here's a doorknob being opened and closed, and here's a cupboard door, and by the way, I'm going to go walking down the hall right now because there's a squeaky floorboard over there.
So with that,
I want to go back to something real quick that Kenny was talking about, and it is a challenge when people do constantly send you what they believe is evidence, and they want your stamp of approval. And I've always told people, I'm not going to give you my stamp of approval because I wasn't there when it was captured. All I can do is tell you what I think it might be, try to explain away the phenomena as well, and that's the best you can do.
Ross,
so
do you love it?
I can add to that where I understand if you're not there, and that's usually like the disclaimer part. I wasn't there, so I don't know all the conditions. However, I have a background in photography. I know what I'm looking for, and the small details, the minute details that other people might not pick up. And I can offer that. I can look at a photo or a video and say, you know what? This angle of shadow here is not matching this angle or this net. I can pick out little details and say, this is the most likely cause. And if you go back to this place and replicate it under these conditions, you're going to get the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I can't say 100%, but in many cases that I deal with, especially when I pick and choose, if there's enough information for me to actually investigate, then I pick the case and I keep going with it. I can offer a lot of information and a procedure to recreate it. And that often, more times than not, that often solves the case because they do go back, they do recreate it and find out you were right. This is what it was. It was a shadow off of this wall or a reflection off of this window. Yes. All right. We figured it out. So even though you're not there, if you have a specific expertise in a subject, you can offer enough information to actually figure out or come up with the most plausible cause of that anomaly and help out and often solve it when you get a chance to recreate it. So,
All right, gentlemen, final topic of the night as we head into the final section of this month's Angry Ghost Hunter. And this is the failed equipment review. This is Jacob's favorite section because this is where he beats up everybody when it comes to technology. His gloves are usually off. Jacob, what are you looking at tonight?
We've got an SLS Connect. And you see this on a lot of the ghosty shows, like they'll walk around in the room. You'll see the little green dots everywhere, and you'll see stickman figures, which on a lot of shows they claim are ghosts or, some kind of entity. Sometimes it looks
demon.
like a demon from hell.
Demon.
Yes, a demon from hell. But so I guess I should do full disclosure. I work for the company that makes these things. So I got to talk to the product manager about how it works. And really, at the end of the day, the hardware is pretty simple. There's 3 components to it. So let me just get through the hardware and then we'll talk about the software because that's where the magic of the ghost hunting happens with the SLS Connect. So first things first is we've got a color VGA type camera, RGB kind of thing. You've got the infrared projector on it. And this is when you see the little green dots everywhere. And then there's also, a microphone. And the microphone is mainly just for voice commands, like if you were using the Connect, right? Because this technology goes back to like 2010, 2013, 15. I forgot when they brought out the new version of it. And so
it was released in 2010.
2010, it was released. And I think this model was put to bed in 2014, 2015, maybe.
Does that have no, that's the version 1.
Yeah, this is the version
Yeah.
1. Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
2010.
Yeah. And so what it does is it uses that, your color VGA type camera and the infrared to create essentially a 3D model of the space. And then what happens is whatever it captures, it gets sent to the software. The software is like the brains behind the thing that starts to shape it and turn it into the stick figure. Okay. But the one thing to know about this, and this is especially true with the very first version of it, is it hedges its bets. So when it's dark, okay, it needs that color light to help create a shape as well. The other thing is if it doesn't have a direct line at you or you're outside this very finite area. So it's usually, say, a 6 to 10 foot square kind of area where you can operate. And remember, this thing is looking for shoulders, neck, head, hips, knees, feet, hands, because it's meant, it's Connect. It's for action video games. And so when those 48 points, essentially this 3D map is created, it tries to create the figure. If it's too dark or you're moving it ever so slightly, because remember, a lot of ghost hunters walk through it, it causes the error handling in it to reset all the time. And so it will hedge its bets and throw a figure out there anyway. It usually catches it in a few seconds. So that's why if you're watching the ghost shows, you never really see the stick figures for the thing on the ceiling or the thing next to you, because this thing can pick up shadows. This thing can pick up shadows as well. They only last for a few seconds, if that, and then they disappear because the error handling has figured out what's the real person. So when you see those stick figures, it's really just the Connect, especially if it's not mapping you, it's just making a wild guess about what it's seeing. Now, there's all sorts of other things that went through this. There's like a million different motion kind of 3D figures built into this thing. And so when you go ghost hunting, everyone's using it incorrectly because it's meant to be stationary 3 to 6 feet up at an appropriate angle, no movement. It has to map you first. And usually ghost hunters just walk on, flip it on, turn the thing on, do screen record if they even want to do that. And all of a sudden you're getting ghosts everywhere. We've used this pretty well. When I've gone walking around, I'm getting stick figures everywhere. When it was stationary, like at Centralia Fox Theater with June on the stage and a little bit of background light, it does need some visible light to work well. We got nothing around her. It didn't even map because it had time to calibrate. So that's my bit on this one. It's not the Connect's fault. It's a user error.
Operator error.
Yeah.
What about the new one? I've seen people adapt the new one into these.
Yeah, so I haven't talked to anyone about that worked on the XCAM SLS. I don't know about that one. I can only tell you about this one. This is the group that I spoke to.
Gotcha.
They were involved with the first one. They're up in Redmond.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. So Kenny, I don't know if you want to chime in on that one or...
I can chime in a little bit. Yeah. I did look into this. I wrote an article about it. There is one more component to it that you missed. It's the IR depth sensor.
Oh, yeah. So that's
yeah. So the IR emitter sends out the speckle pattern. So it sends out this pattern. It's actually 9 blocks of thousands and thousands of little dots. If you ever seen the movie Paranormal Activity number 4, because I don't know why they had to make 4, but they did. So if you ever seen that, you'll see the speckle pattern. That's pretty much what it is. If you use any kind of infrared or security camera while viewing it when it's on, as I have, you'll see it. Lots of dots. And that's how it determines shapes and the 3D environment. But you mentioned, yes, that it sees the environment and it has to be on a stable surface. And that's one of the main things. You touched on this a little bit, where it has to be on a stable surface. The instructions, if you download the manual to the Connect, it tells you it has to be on a stable surface. When you're moving it around constantly, you have to remember that it's okay. So let me put it this way. My brain's going a mile a minute here. If you put it on a stable surface, and it's looking out into the environment, it actually does a calibration of the area. It goes up and down. Yeah, when you turn it on, when it's plugged into the Xbox, it does an up and down look. So it sees the environment, says, all right, everything that's here is here. You're supposed to have players at least 6 feet away from it. And it's 6 to 8 feet, depending on how many players. And you're supposed to have at least 10 feet across, like free of furniture, which you never see happening when this is used on ghost hunting shows. So when you're going through and you're moving it around, and as you demonstrate, it's on a handle, and people are moving around with a portable battery, and they're walking around with this different places. That is seeing the environment as a whole bunch of people moving, because it's not supposed to move. It's supposed to be on a stable surface. It's supposed to be on your TV, like on your entertainment center or above your TV, not moving. So that anything that does move in the scene that disrupts the 3D pattern, the speckle pattern, it sees it as a player. But if you're constantly moving it, that software is interpreting the environment as moving. Everything in the environment is moving. So anything that's like a chair, a trash bag, a backpack, the end of a sofa, a couch, archways, whatever, can be mistaken as a figure, because it's seeing curves. There's a whole bunch more to it. Like the speckle pattern, when the dot elongates around a corner. So if it sees a shoulder and it starts elongating, so it's not just a dot, it's actually like an egg shape, an oval shape. That's telling the software that it's a curve. That's an edge. And there's an object there, and there's stuff behind it. But if you're constantly moving this thing around, like we see in the ghost hunting shows, it's constantly resetting. It's going to make mistakes, because it's also designed for games like Dance Party, which I am pretty good at, I must say. But think about it. Like, if you're facing the TV, we're all facing the cameras like this. You can see our arms. But what happens if during the course of play, I go like this? You only see one hand. You don't see this arm anymore. You don't see my other leg if I was standing up. And I think you touched on it, Jacob.
Yeah,
that
it makes assumptions. It makes assumptions when things block or change. Yeah,
it has to. It has to make assumptions where that other thing is, where that other arm, where their other leg is. And the software, I mean, when Microsoft designed this, they went into not only to motion capture studios, but they also went into people's homes, and they captured people of all shapes and sizes. And we're not just talking about people. We're talking about people with clothing on. So, like, all of us, like, we have some shirts on. You guys have some hoodie. Jacob, you have a hoodie on. I have a hoodie on. That bulks us up a little bit. So,
Dave's in a dress.
Always.
Hula skirt.
I heard about
Hula
that.
skirt.
I heard about that.
I
So
look
you have to understand that, like, it's looking at the environment and seeing these figures coming into play, and it's trying to make a determination of what does this object look like compared to the database that I have of human figures of all shapes, sizes, body, all kinds of shapes. It's going to make mistakes. And I mean, I have videos myself where I have a couple of them, and I want to say I also pick these up at yard sales. I've gotten these for like $5, easy $5. But I've hooked them up to my laptop. I downloaded the software, which is free from Microsoft. So don't think you're getting a bargain when you're paying like $300, $400, $500.
Yeah, that's the other thing I always got to say about working for the company. They're just like, no, we have this cutting edge technology. Microsoft does not let you alter source code. Okay, this has not been altered in any way. Okay, back to you, Dave.
So it's out there, and you can download it. I did that. That's what all these people, like what he has, the setup he has, that's what they did. They downloaded the software and installed it, which is funny. I don't know how they get around selling it, but they do.
No.
That's a whole different legal issue. I'm not going to get into that. But
Gentlemen,
I downloaded it. I've taken it around my house, and I have stick figures on trash bags, backpacks, chairs, sofas, ceiling fans. Just one fan.
That's a lot of ghosts. Oh my God.
I know.
Dude, he's got like 6 cents all over him.
Entertainment centers.
And it catches your reflection too. It
Yes.
will bounce back and map your reflection.
Yes, because it is
Absolutely.
light. Even though it's using infrared light, you have to understand it still uses the same principles as light. It'll reflect. And that means not only will reflective surfaces distort it, such as mirrors. But if you use infrared light, such as with your cameras, with your flashlights, lots of things that are typical on ghost hunts, it will distort it. It will mess it up. I've had videos, I still have videos on my YouTube channel where a vacuum cleaner has a stick figure on it. But you see me walk up with a infrared light and I just shine a light on the vacuum cleaner, boom, it's gone.
There you go.
So you have to understand that too. If you're using infrared light, that's going to affect what it sees, how it determines what the environment is. There is so much wrong with how it's being used. Stop it. Just stop it, people.
Save the $400. Save the $400.
And on that note, Ross Allison, Kenny Dibble, Jacob Rice, and
I have to say, hold on. My name is Biddle.
Biddle.
Biddle. Biddle. I want to just correct that.
Rob Dibble played for Philadelphia.
I'm going to use that later, though.
Yeah. So Kenny Biddle, bad host, ruining the names. And there's a little Roddy Boniek in the chat room, otherwise known as the Ukrainian watermelon. And we love you guys. Ross, Kenny, Jacob, and Merle. Great show on the Angry Ghost Hunters. We will talk to you all next month. And I'm sure we will be just as heated, just as debatable when we are back on November 27th. Now, that date may have to change a little bit, but we'll figure it out by then. Yeah, October. Thank you. I'm way off right now. Way off. But you know what?
Must be that dress you're wearing.
It could be a temporal anomaly.
It's
the hula skirt
is just way too tight right now.
Okay.
Anyway, gentlemen from the Angry Ghost Hunter on Spaced Out Radio's YouTube channel, do us a favor. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. And because we are coming up in about less than an hour on Spaced Out Radio tonight, we'll talk to you all very soon. Good night from the Angry Ghost Hunter.